Okay. All right, guys. So we've got a good group together today. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. So Jason is going to start us off and talk about what to look for as far as scams and wire fraud, and hopefully to avoid getting your information stolen. We also are going to have Darcy with Fidelity National Title Insurance talking about it from the attorney and title perspective. We're going to have Jim with Wells Fargo, who is not here yet, but he will be soon, talking about imposter fraud. And then we'll have Sarah Applegate wrapping it up, talking about the horror stories and some stats. So we're pretty much going to scare you really bad today so that you hopefully don't fall victim to wire fraud. But without further ado.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Awesome. I'm doing great. Thanks. A little tired, but I'm getting there. So doing this, what I'm going to go over is a kind of a wide spectrum, not just wire fraud, but just email security, kind of in general, what to look for, what to avoid, and just kind of hopefully get in your head from now on to be very vigilant, be smart, don't click things. And yeah, I mean, that's really my base. I'll let the experts, as far as the wire fraud part of it goes, from the insurance or title insurance and the bank, kind of go over that stuff. Yeah, so when I was speaking with my wife last night, because she does a lot of presentations and I'm a bit rusty because it's been a while, I asked her, what if she had any advice. She said, the first thing is to always make sure that the most important stuff that you want them to take in is in the beginning, because after like 4 minutes or so, it goes from like 70% retention to like 30%, and then it goes down, the further we go in. So my base thing I wanted to make sure I got in your heads was don't trust anything that you get online. And this, if you guys don't know who this is Public Enemy from like 1991. So that's Flavor Flav. If you guys know who Flavor Flav is. Yeah, so I did a little throwback, and so hopefully, if nothing else, just don't trust anything that you get online. Always verify, make sure it's a legit source. Don't click anything unless you're 100% sure what you're clicking on. So just going over some quick numbers as far as scams, and there's a ton of numbers out there. I collected a ton of stats, and I was like, this is going to be so boring. So I just wiped them out, and I was like, I'll just stick with two. And one of them is an annual survey with business owners and employees. Said that over 80% were victim of a phishing attack or experienced some sort of phishing attack, whether or not they, something was taken or not. Everybody gets something sent to them in an attempt to take their information or get them to, fraudulently, expose whatever it is they're after. And email scammers earn over $300 million every month in the U.S. alone, which I thought was kind of crazy. So types of tactics that scammers do, and these are kind of what you're going to get in your email is, these are just basic 4 bullet points. Invoice, they send you an invoice that hadn't been paid, want you to pay it. Virus or compromised account, Microsoft sends you an email saying that your account has been hacked, or you can say Windows or Apple saying that you need to reset your password, and you click on the link without thinking about it, you go put in your login information, and you've now given them access to your account. Payment and delivery, you get an invoice for something, saying that, if, you need to pay this, or you get something saying that it wasn't delivered, like Netflix saying your payment didn't go through, please click here to update your account information. Everything looks legit. You go put in your information, and now again, they have access. And downloads, you just open an email sometimes, and that's enough. Or you click a DocuSign email, thinking it's from DocuSign, and it says it's a contract. You were expecting a contract. Click it, and then now you've got something on your computer. So there's all sorts of ways that you can get your information if you're not careful. And there's a process most scammers use to kind of develop their little schemes. First, they target the selection. Whether it's on the dark web, they go and they get email lists, account information. There's all sorts of ways that they can go and get access to people's names and their email addresses in order to create lists to send out mass emails and hope that somebody bites. The social engineering part is how they're going to take that information, whether it's they're sending you fake invoices, any of those things that we listed on the screen before. These are all different ways that they can basically hook you into thinking that they're legit and giving up your info. And then the technical side is them actually creating those paywall, like pay pages. Like if they're getting your credit card information, they can create pages that look just like it's a legit website that you use on a daily basis or monthly. You have a monthly type of thing going. They'll impersonate those web pages so you think that you're actually on there and put in your credit card information, and that's how they get access to it. So again, don't trust anybody. Emails are.
Nobody's gonna forget it.
That's the goal. That was like probably a good 15 minutes of searching to find a good one. So emails are easily designed to look like however you want. I mean, anybody that has any basic knowledge with HTML or whatever can make a email look legit, look like it's coming from the bank, look like it's coming from whatever services that you guys possibly use, and they can easily put the name of whatever company that you think is coming from in there. So if you're not looking at the email address that it's coming from, and you just look and it says Remax Executive, and it's Remax Executive sending this to me, but it's actually coming from an email address that is somewhere in Russia. Those are the little things that you have to pay attention to that a lot of people don't. Always look at the source. This is an example of a text message. So I'm going to give you guys a second to kind of just glance over it. This should be obvious, but these are the types of things that work, and people just get a text, they glance, and they click it, and they're already in the process of something terrible. So I would say just take a moment and try to spot all the things that are wrong with this.
The spelling of the bank clever mark.
Yeah, spelling, if you check the email address.
And that's just way too many exclamation points, really.
Yeah. You've got, I don't know if you noticed, but this is a 0, not a O. And the same goes for over here. And this is not a Bank of America URL either. It's CIP MSG dash important news. Important new alert with 2 T's. So they're very clever. Not really. they don't take a lot of time in these apparently. So again, it's just being vigilant, and no matter what it is that you get, always take a couple of seconds to say, hey, is this legit? If it is Bank of America and you're concerned, I mean, if I got one of these, I'd probably call the bank just to make sure that, hey, nothing happened to my account, right? Just for my peace of mind. I know that this is a scam and I'm not going to click it, but it also makes me worried maybe somebody did access my account. So I always would suggest anytime you get anything from your bank or saying, something's been compromised, always call to verify to make sure everything is cool. Nothing is, changed. Update your passwords if it makes you feel comfortable. Just be sure. This is an email that is becoming a very popular thing being sent out to our agents, where it says it's from Hadi, and it's for whatever reason it's always saying, hey, will you go get me some gift cards? And I mean, I'm hoping that all of our agents and staff know that he's never going to email or text you and ask you to run to the store and pick up some gift cards for him. Especially when you look at the next one and he wants $1,000 in Amazon gift cards. And to, text the number to this number. And, in case you were wondering, he's like, I know you're going to wonder whose number this is. This is Sandra Attree, who's a person that doesn't exist. But just in case you were like, wait, this isn't his cell phone number. It's like, don't worry, it's Sandra's.
It's a scam call.
Yeah. So, these things, I thought this was just a great example because it's recent and it's going out to our agents. And I heard they've been getting text messages too. Some people have gotten text messages that are supposedly from him. I mean, if you look right here at this email address, it's not his email address. So that right away is a super clue, not Hadi. This is somebody's email account got hacked, and then they use it to impersonate him to send it to an email list. Somehow they got our email list from wherever. I mean, who knows how many people got sent out, but there's also phone calls that lead to voicemails. And this is one that actually came to me.
Dear Verizon Wireless customer, your account has been suspended for verification. To reactivate your account using the press 1. To speak to a representative, press 2.
So if I had answered the phone and pressed 2, I'm sure I would have gotten some person that said that they're with Verizon, and they would have said, we just need to verify your credit card information or something along those lines. I didn't answer it. I get these kind of phone calls all the time. I never answer them because of this stuff. Interesting enough, I actually looked up the number when it called me because since it left a voice message, which is odd. Most usually they just hang up. And there was a couple of people saying that it was Verizon's whatever phone number. So, which is possible because you can spoof phone numbers. So I called Verizon, and they're, verified that there was nothing wrong with the account, everything was fine. But it's just another example that was directed at me that, again, I thought I'd share because I want to make sure everybody knows that this can happen in multiple different ways. It's not just email scams, it's texting, it's also phone calls. And this is a really long one. I'm not going to ask you to read all this, but this has gone to our agents and been sent to me, like asking me if I've heard of this or seen anything like this before. And I actually, right after an agent sent me this, I got one very similar, and it's playing on fear. And it's saying that they have video of you going on websites that you don't want people to know that you're going on, and doing things that they don't, you don't want them to know about. And if you don't pay them whatever amount of money, they'll release it. So, and of course, it's got send me money on Bitcoin, which is, if anytime anybody asks for money on Bitcoin, you can guarantee that it's not cool. It's not legit. But these are very common, and you can rest assured that nobody has video of you doing something. That they just send these to huge email lists, and they know people are going to get scared. They know that the percentage of people who probably do things on their computer they wouldn't be proud of is high. So they're counting on, even if it's 3%, of the people they probably send this out to, $2,900, that's probably going to add up really quick. So for them, it's a crapshoot, but if, you get a couple people to bite, it's worth it. So, passwords. Anytime you get a reset password, go to the source. So if it says that your password's been compromised, these are examples of sites that were set up to look like the actual site. These are all fake websites for Apple, and it's just so easy. If you don't even have to have much knowledge in web design or anything to just copy the source code from a website and paste it into an HTML file, and then just change where it's going so that the login is going to you instead of going to Apple. These are just some quick examples of how easy it is for them to make it look like it's coming from a legit source. Netflix, MailChimp, GoDaddy. These are all fake emails, but they all look very convincing. So most people aren't going to know. Yeah.
I got one yesterday from GoDaddy.
Did you?
Telling me that my email account renewal is expiring.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at the phone number, and I decided to just look up GoDaddy, and it had slightly different phone number. I called GoDaddy, and they said, your email doesn't renew until next June. I said, why am I getting an email now? They said, it's probably phishing.
Yep. And it's just easy. It's so easy for them to make these and then just send them out. So that's why, again, what he did is perfect. Go to the source. And you can also, like these links, you can usually hover over them and see where they're actually going. And that will give you a clue. Over here, it's really small, but this is not a MailChimp email account. So that's another obvious one. And same goes for the GoDaddy. There's a lot of things that you can spot that will say, hey, wait a second, this isn't legit. But the easiest way is to do what he did and just call the company. If it says that, if your account is, overdue or past due, just go directly to them and say, hey, I just want to make sure that everything is fine. I threw in one from a title company, which has wiring instructions. So just so you know, and this Chicago Title of Colorado, this was just a random one that I found when I was doing some research. But again, it's obviously this is not going to go to where it's supposed to go. And it's just one of many other examples of just a simple thing and hoping that the person bites and just, sends it off without any thought. And the easiest thing to do with all these is always to verify. Just call the company, hey, is this information you just emailed me correct? And if they say, what email? You know right away. So to wrap it up, don't trust any emails that you get. Always verify. Just slow down, take your time. Don't get clicky. I always tell people don't click stuff. It's like, it drives me nuts just how easy people just click without thought until something happens. And then, the damage it can do is, severe, whether it's just you getting a little virus on your computer and it's slowing it down to somebody getting access to your bank account and draining it. It only takes a minute. And, if you're I've read some stories I was going to talk about, and it was just going to be too much explanation. But I read some stories about people who, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars just like that, because it's a great example of why not to use Bitcoin and stuff to put your money as, in those accounts, thinking that it's a great savings account, because if anybody gets access to your Bitcoin accounts and drains it, there is no insurance. That's gone. You don't get to call. They're not a bank that you can call and say, oh, well, FDIC. Nope. Once that's gone, it's gone. So, the main message is just be wary of everything that you get via email, text, phone calls, and just take a moment to analyze things. I know real estate agents are super busy, always on the go, and it's really easy to not think about it. Just click on whatever, especially when you're on your phone, and people think that their phone is safe. It's not. You can get hacked on there just as easily as you can get hacked on a computer. So that's the bottom line. All right. Any questions? Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Darcy.
Darcy.
Hi, everybody. That's me, back when I was pregnant. So I need to get new pictures taken because now I'm just a fat mother of a 3-year-old. So my name is Darcy Comstock, and I am title counsel for Fidelity National Title. And I am underwriter for Executive Title, which is Allie McCormick in the back of the room. So that's how I'm here today. And I have the fun job of teaching or talking to you guys about wire fraud, data breach, and how it affects an attorney and title company perspective. So super exciting stuff. So please interrupt at any point with questions. I love this to be conversation. I've got plenty of war stories to fill the time. Don't worry. If we need to do it, we can. So I was thinking about my audience today, and I know that either real estate agents love or hate a title company, depending on the experience that they've had in a transaction. And that can be because we are seen as reactive. If you have a problem come up in your closing, we can either react in a great way and save it for your customer, or we can maybe make some more requirements that slow things down. And so I think that's what people see is the reactive side of title insurance. And when I started, and this is, I think it's really humorous that I'm giving this presentation because I'm old enough that I used to use my social security number to check out library books. So that is, that's my experience of my starting point is down here for wire fraud. And but back when I started with Fidelity, we were solely reactive role. I sat at my desk, I waited for people to call and say, hey, we've got this problem with the closing, help us. And I'd say, here we come, title company, to fix the problem. But probably within the last 10 years, we started to have at our Fidelity meetings, FBI agents coming in saying, there's this thing called wire fraud. You need to worry about it. And that was, I was like, oh, it's Nigerian lotteries. I'm not gonna marry a Nigerian prince. I'm not gonna fall for that. I'm no good with technology, but I still can spot a scam, let me tell you. And I worried more for people like my parents who didn't have passwords on their Wi-Fi and wondered why all the neighborhood teenagers were sitting out on their curb. I was like, there's all these children out front all the time. I was like, put a password on your Wi-Fi, Mom. But, that's who I thought, that these scams would affect. But I'm here to tell you now, as the title insurer, as a deep pocket to the transaction, we get called when things go wrong. And things go wrong quite a bit in North Carolina all the time across the state. So it's here. I mean, they're smart. It's a scary thing. And the hard part about it is there's no silver bullet to stop it. There's no clear party that's at fault. It just is a bad situation when it happens. It's not that you can automatically call on the attorney's E&O or your E&O or the title company. It just is, but you've got this poor customer that has lost their funds. It's not nice. So instead of being reactive, a lot of my stuff has now switched to being proactive. There's a lot of attorneys in North Carolina, and part of my job is sitting there looking at attorney applications for people that want to be approved with Fidelity. There's thousands of attorneys in North Carolina, and I had one attorney tell me, "Oh, I do rent law, anything to pay the rent." If an attorney tells you that they're just doing whatever to pay the rent, that is not the attorney you want to do your closings with, let me tell you, because real estate is complicated, as you all know, and a closing can be made or broken by someone's experience and the time and dedication they can put to it. And someone that's just kind of throwing in a real estate closing now and then with their personal injury practice is usually not the person that's going to help safeguard your client's funds. So we have to narrow down the list of attorneys that we work with at Fidelity. And so I spend my days running credit checks, vetting that, but it's only a one-time snapshot because we've got over 3,000 approved attorneys. So we run their credit, we check their E&O, we check their experience, we check their references. So if they're on our approved list, it means that at least one time in their life, we have looked at them and made sure that they are a good attorney to do real estate with. Then the next thing that happens is that we maintain this list. And now the easy way is if somebody disbars somebody, we can get those notices and take people off the list so that you're still not going to an attorney that for some reason has stolen client funds or done any of that stuff. But we also I call it the coconut telegraph. You get to hear all the gossip and innuendo that comes in from the street. Last week, stuff started to trickle up. There's an attorney that is still licensed to practice by the bar. Called the bar, they say, "Oh yeah, he's good to go," but he has 12 counts of forgery. He's accused of 12 counts of forgery, felony forgery, in court, and he's dealing with that now. And we knew that because someone's paralegal told somebody else's paralegal. So that's we're listening to that stuff. And why do we care about attorneys doing forgery and things like that? Because we're title insurance. We insure how they handle the money, how they move the money, that they follow instructions, that they keep the funds secure. So because of that component of our insurance, wire fraud has obviously become a big part of it because we want to make sure that people are following the standards that they need to be, that they've got good people, that they've got honest people in there, and that your funds and your clients' funds will be safe as they move through a real estate transaction. So I'm just me. I work for the whole state of North Carolina, and we've got this massive list. Luckily, you guys have Allie through RE/MAX Executive at Executive Title, and she is every quarter looking at the attorneys that you guys are using and making sure that they know the standards that Executive expects them to use when they're handling your customers. Making sure that you get the best service, the fastest service, the most responsive service. And so every quarter she's looking at that list, she's meeting with the attorneys and, making sure that everything seems copacetic and she's in and out of their offices. Beyond that, she's running a program called No More Chasing Checks, which is great because it gets your money faster, which is obviously everybody likes that. But when you put on your wire fraud hat, this is all social engineering. These are all people trying to trick other people. So when you have someone like Allie that's in and out of the attorney's offices, that's hand delivering wiring instructions and carrying checks back and forth, they know Allie. There's a person that they can put a face to the name. Somebody wants a hold of you. No worries, it's fine. So that's really a valuable thing to have, a independent contact outside of email, outside of phone calls that they know that they can go to. So say someone at a paralegal at a law firm, all of a sudden got an email from Allison saying, hey, this is Allison, can you wire our funds to Bank of the Ozarks instead of Wells Fargo? They know Allie, so they can pick up the phone and say, hey, Allie, are you going by Allison now? Did you guys, Remax Executive, switch to Bank of the Ozarks? And she can say, no, don't wire that commission to Bank of the Ozarks. I mean, and believe me, this stuff happens on the regular. So having somebody in a law firm that they are familiar with and kind of bird dogging a smaller group of attorneys. I mean, we love all of our approved attorneys. We believe in them. But, if you need a referral or somebody new in the area, if you aren't happy with the service you have, you might consider some of those law firms that Executive is vetting. Or if you know somebody that's doing great work that you are impressed with, that is treating you awesome, we'd love to hear about it. We're in the business of supporting approved attorneys and learning and seeing what they do great. Part of what we do for our approved attorneys is provide education. We do these same sort of seminars for attorneys, teaching them about wire fraud, hopefully scaring them enough to not click on the strange link from Bank of America or anything like that. So we're always out there educating, and if we hear good stories and we can give people attaboys, we love that. It's a conversation back and forth from the field is fantastic, because I don't want to hear about 12 felony counts. I want to hear about they saved my closing. They got an email and it didn't happen that way. So like I said, any help that you can provide, good stories about attorneys and also bad stories. Because we do count on you guys, because you're in the offices and you know what's going on in a transaction. It's a big problem, and everybody can do something to help stem the tide of the losses. We had recently, I think it was an attorney, a young associate attorney, we probably had scared too much at one of these seminars. The seller went to closing and handed them a piece of paper with their handwritten, these are my wiring instructions, please wire my proceeds to this account. And the young attorney said, oh, no. I can't take handwritten wiring instructions. Are you crazy? I need something more formal. So, I think you can all guess where this is going, that the closing happened. They were waiting on seller's wiring instructions. They got an email from a very similar email address, but not the same email address, saying, please send my wire to this bank that was not sellers. So they were very surprised when they got a second set of wiring instructions later that night from the attorney. And we didn't know about this until the bar issued the censure. But, when you do the Monday morning quarterbacking, if there had been somebody, if the seller, I think the seller was unrepresented, but if they would have had a real estate agent there that could have stood up and said, hey, no, this is my customer's wiring instructions. We can verify them, but please take them. They can sign a form. We can surely do something. You guys could have stopped all of this cycle, because the money, luckily they recovered the bulk of the money before it went offshore, but there was still a couple $1,000 shortfall that the attorney ended up having to make up, because no one ever gets out of these scot-free. I mean, it costs money when it happens, and you just hope that it's an amount of money that you can write a check for. So that's like we said before, common sense, thinking through things. That attorney really should have had a little more common sense, that even if something's handwritten, it's still good information. And just using the experience that you guys have with real estate, because customers are so nervous. They are just nervous, I feel like. And anytime we get an insured calling us, it's like they are stressed out. It's the biggest transaction of their life, and they just are trying to go. I recently sold and bought a house at the end of June, which is super fun, and it was a heat wave too on top of it. And here I am. I'm giving the speech on wire fraud. Even though in the late 90s my social security number was all over every public library in Western Pennsylvania. And we were buying a new house, and there was a builder incentive to use a certain real estate agent or a real estate law firm. Good firm. Our buyer that we were selling to chose a different law firm, equally good firm. And I said to our agent, hey, I'm kind of nervous about wiring funds between two law firms because I've gone to all of these wire fraud seminars, and maybe I'm paranoid. And the agent said, we wire money all the time. It's not a problem. Why would you leave money on the table? And my husband's looking at me going, why would you leave money on the table, honey? And so I said, all right, this is great. Two good firms. I know what to do. I'm going to call the law firm from a number in the phone book. I verify these wiring instructions. I carry them over to the other seller's law firm. But in the interim, we're using our Gmail account to work interface with our lender, who was Wells Fargo. And Wells was absolutely great about using secure emails, secure portals for anything that was personal information that I wouldn't want to get out. It was a really smooth process. But there still is enough in my Gmail that could let somebody know if they were watching that I was getting a loan through Wells Fargo. And I've heard Gmail is kind of like sending things on a postcard, and I believe it after this, because probably 3 or 4 days after we started the loan application process with Wells Fargo, we start to get those same texts, both my husband and I. Wells Fargo, your account, you need to reset it. Click on this link. I mean, through the whole mortgage process, we were getting phishing texts. And, we knew enough not to click on them. I still wonder about my parents if they would have known enough not to click on them. But they were looking. They were trying to get our money, and we were aware of that. So back to the wiring. We get to closing, everything's going so smoothly, until my wire decides to take a 14-hour walkabout. It's just gone. They wire it from one law firm to the next, and luckily we knew that they had the right account, that they hadn't been any social engineering. But when your proceeds from selling your house are missing for 14 hours and your stuff's in a moving truck and you have a 3-year-old, no matter how much you like somebody, how much I like those law firms, how much I like the real estate agents, how much I loved my husband, I was the definition of a nervous breakdown, yelling at all of these people, you told me to wire, da, 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 this is safe. So once it happens, and it will happen, someone will try and fish, some wire will get lost. Any of those relationships that you thought were great, that you were trying to I'm going to overlook that they're still using a Hotmail account to send settlement statements, they're not coming secure mail or something like that. It's not going to work when you have a crazy buyer or seller that's looking for their money and looking at you going, where are my funds? So anything we can do to be proactive, to talk to Allie if you notice something, we like I said, we love our approved attorneys. We're just going to train them up. Like, hey, have you considered secure mail? Hotmail is not the way to be sending your CDs anymore, or your Altas. And then the other thing I thought is, when I asked my agent, should I be wiring this fund? They should say, yes, we wire funds all the time. It is totally something we do, and I don't think you should leave those funds on the table, you crazy woman. But be on the lookout for phishing emails. Be on the lookout for phishing texts. These things happen. If you have any questions, call your lender, call me, call the law firm. We're here to walk you through it. There are people out there that may be trying to listen in on the transaction, but we'll keep them out. I think that's a totally appropriate conversation to have with your customer if they are expressing concerns about wiring. So those would be my takeaways, is that we're all professionals. We all know that this is a problem, but your customers may not know it's a problem. So if you can kind of highlight to them in a friendly manner, then not to scare them, because we don't want to go back to the young associate that won't even take handwritten things, but just, let them know to watch out for these things. And that if you notice anything with a particular law firm, like, hey, I've had 3 closings with them now. And every time the wire is missing for a couple hours, and they're telling me weird things like, oh, the Federal Reserve just does this sometimes, that maybe I should talk to Allie about it. Or if if you notice irregularities in your commission checks that all of a sudden they're drawn on different accounts, that may not be wire fraud. That might be good old approved attorney fraud, and I love to deal with that too. So, we're here to get everybody through it safely and to make sure the money goes where it's supposed to be. And that is it. I feel like I've talked really fast and I've talked a lot. So if you guys have any questions.
Just wanted to bring up one point that in the market that we're in right now, with sellers being able to negotiate whatever they want, you can request the same closing attorney that you would have wanted because you had to use it for your buy side.
Right.
Not every time we get it, but it is one of the ways that you wouldn't have had to deal with the wire.
Yeah.
You're using the same attorney for both sides.
Yeah, I should have talked to you. I should have had a better real estate agent than what I had. Never use a neighbor just because you like her. But that is the truth of it. Is that something to think about when you're even if your seller or buyer isn't asking about it, maybe that's a way to make the transaction go smoother. Just pragmatically, the money stays in one place, but the less times money moves, the better chance you have that it ends up at the right place.
I do want to pipe in on that example. Even if you're in that situation, make that smarter decision, even if you're not using one of the attorneys on our approved list. I literally had this situation with a lake agent. It was dual representation. It was a lake agent or two lake agents. And call on me. I have a lot of experience both as a real estate paralegal, sending wires. I have a lot of background there. I was able to talk to the company. This particular company was out of Florida. They did not want to take the commission out of the funds like we typically do here, and it was being held up to closing. So both agents actually called me, and I was able to get on the phone and just talk to the person, kind of explain the situation, and then made an exception. So we do these services, title do these services because I want your business. I can't cut deals. We make this service because we know these attorneys, but we have relationships that the service circles back to us. But even if it's outside of that, use all of us up there. Our other underwriter, she's got 9 or 10 years experience with a big competitor in town. So she's a resource for me. Like I said, I have a lot of background, so sometimes I can be that person to step in and understand the other person's perspective and hopefully get you to, where you need to be. So if you're in a pickle like that, I still would support it, even though you're, not going to choose from the attorneys. And we do have a list here if you need it, plus it's on Wolf Connect. But yeah, be smart because we all work for money and we all want to make sure it gets to the right place.
Yeah, it's much more fun to just write a check for a purse instead of to repay a scammer. Yes.
I have a story to tell that relates to all of this because I was a victim of wire fraud
Oh no.
as an agent in April of 2016, and I have an open case with the FBI.
Oh wow.
So it can happen,
It
and
does.
the way it happened, the FBI helped me figure out how it happened. In February of 16, I got an email from someone named Carrie Jones who said, hey, I was referred to you by some of your past clients are ready to start looking at homes. Attached is my pre-approval letter. Let me know when we get started.
Mhm.
Seems legit, right?
Yeah.
Really legit. Referral from your client. Name, everything. Email Carrie Jones. So I opened it. And I emailed back and it just did the short quick things. Let me know where I said, Carrie, I got your information, your pre-approval letter. Can you send that again? Because I'm not able to perceive what this is and help you. Did it again. She wrote back. Same thing. So then I emailed, so let me have your phone number. I'll call. Never heard from me again. So fast forward April. I realized nothing. I had a really good spring quarter. I had about 8 transactions under contract ready to close in May and June. And on right before May, I was at a walkthrough, and I got a phone call from my client. I got 14 phone calls from my client.
Oh yeah, they
3 minutes down.
nervous breakdown.
And I listened to the voicemail, and he had wired funds to his closing that was going on tomorrow from my email with the Wells Fargo transfer information. And within 30 minutes of him wiring funds, he got the real wiring instructions from Brick Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I use Brick Trump with their proof. It does make a difference the attorney you use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no question about it. The attorney is the critical, pivotal part of your transaction. I realize that now. At any rate, he was in the Wells Fargo immediately to let them know he had wired to a fraudulent account. We were able to mark it as fraud,
Mm-hmm.
but that money is gone.
It
That
was
money
so
is gone.
fast.
That money is in another account that's there because the way the bank looks at it is you gave me the instructions to wire those funds there. So how do I know you are trying to be the deceitful party, deceiving the seller and buying that
Right.
home tomorrow, getting possession, and your funds never transfer? So you got to see it from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, 6 or 7 days later, we managed to get it reversed. 6 or 7 days of my life I'll never forget, nor of their life they'll never forget. Fortunately, they were very patient. We've been in the banking industry. You know, they were nervous. It was $257,000.
Yeah.
A lot of money. We did get it reversed. And what I found out at the end when I sat down with Derek Farmer of the FBI was how they got in, and it's called a key logging service. So when I type in my computer, my email address and my password, they have it. If I change it, they have it. Whatever I'm typing is on their screen.
Mm-hmm.
They are me.
Yeah.
And they started a junk file back in. As soon as the house went under contract, they emailed them the next day to wire funds early. We found the junk file through Derek Farmer. Helped me find that. But because I use a closing coordinator, most of my correspondence was between Kim and the client.
Right.
So you don't really realize what's going on. Now I CC everybody on every single thing I do.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that I've done to change things are CCing everybody on everything I do. My email accounts, all of them, have a double password to get in. So,
Right.
Unless it's on my personal computer. If I check in from here, I have to have a password to get into my computer. I sit down on my listing and my buyer's appointments. I go over the wire fraud documents on both North and South Carolina. I pick the few excuses. I scare them, tell them my stories. It can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you avoid it. When you go to closing, if you're the seller, you take it with your check. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
As the buyer, you do it. I just texted my client now. You call from the line in the bank, and you call the landline from the attorney and ask them to regurgitate back to you the wire instructions. Don't tell them what you have. Make them tell you that back to you.
Exactly.
And that, it's still not 100%, but I feel like my safety and protecting my clients, which is our job. And I'm still not sure if E&O covers wire fraud. I don't think that it does. So had that 257 not been returned, yes, it would have been on. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
Because according to North Carolina and South Carolina Association of Realtors, the agent owes the client a safe email experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of scary. I went throughout North and South Carolina and spoke on it for about a year trying to
Good for you.
just implement a couple of little things that do make a difference, but scary to find us.
Mm-hmm. They know we're here. They know we move a lot of money, and they know that we're kind of a cottage industry in North and South Carolina. So
They know we do things too quickly.
mm-hmm.
very true at the speed.
Yeah.
Why is it that we stopped bringing certified checks to?
Why did we do that?
I know most pretty good. I'm saying, why is it? How many problems were there for each certified check versus wire?
There was, again, old as dirt, there was a switch in the banking industry to move from certified funds to official checks, which are based on ACH transfers, which were then, that was the first variation of wire fraud. They started to get reversed. So they thought that they were credited funds, but they actually were underlying an ACH transfer. So kind of like a wire, but has the ability to be reversed. So at that point, a couple attorneys had ACHs reversed. It was a big loss because the state bar says you have to entrust your client's funds, and they dispersed on funds that got reversed or fraudulent. So they started to move to wires. So that was probably the first wave, and then they caught up, and now they're preying on wires. So now I feel like everyone should just carry big briefcases full of cash to a closing. That would be the safest. But you know, I've noticed some of the local law firms are moving back up into the amount of certified funds that they will accept. But that is why that decision was made. There was a perception that wires were safer. But no, I mean, there are ways to make wires safer. I mean, law firms, and I'm over my time, but they can use a dedicated computer just for wires, has no connection to email or anything like that. You know, there's standards we try and beat into them to make it a better experience. But it just takes one wire, it just takes one email that you click on in a hurry, and that's the problem. It's a big dollar amount if they score. You know, they take 1,000 swings and it only hits once, but it's enough. So.
Hopefully all of our speakers will hang around for a little bit afterwards if you have more questions.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Next we have Jim with Wells Fargo. He's going to talk on imposter fraud.
How do we really know it's you though, Jim? If you're
I
talking
know.
about imposter fraud?
You don't. Oh, great, thank you. Morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Jim Harpham. I'm a treasury management sales consultant with Wells Fargo. Been with the bank for about 14 years. One of my little satellite offices is right across the street, and we work with WeMac. So we are honored to be here. Thank you again for the invite. And unfortunately, I'm talking on a very gloomy kind of subject. I feel like the harbinger of doom every time we have to come talk to people about this, but it's really important that we're educating you on what it is and how to combat it. And it really does dovetail very nicely with what Darcy was just covering with phishing emails, because there's kind of a similar component there with that. And we can never be too careful. So what it is, and some little stats here to start off with. So 5 seconds, and we were just talking about it. That's about how long it takes to send a wire once you've input all the information into it. 2 hours. I think this stat's a little bit high, but 2 hours reflects the amount of time it would take to then take that amount of money and then, move it along and out of the account that you just sent it to. I would probably say that's more along the lines of 15 to 30 minutes. And especially in the domestic wire situation, I mean, we see this all the time, sadly. I mean, an imposter fraud is something that I'll explain in a little bit more in detail, but it's outside the bank's purview. We heard this, example, and thank you for sharing that with everybody, because it's important that people know. But if it happens outside of the bank's purview and our controls, there's not a lot we can do, which is why it's so important that we educate people on this and avoid it. But yeah, I mean, if it's within the domestic arena, these people they've gotten your money, you've wired it off somewhere, and then within minutes, it's wired off to the Ukraine or South Africa or Hong Kong, and it's gone. So it is really, really important that you have these processes in place, and multiple authentication to make sure these things are valid and accurate. 30 days just reflects what time frame it might be before you actually catch it. So I think really the purpose of what imposter fraud might be relevant to you would be probably within your own offices. If you're paying vendors or because I think within a real estate transaction, you're gonna find out really quickly, like you did, if something goes awry. But I think if within your offices, if you have a situation where you've sent off money for a particular transaction to a vendor, for a project, for software, what have you, sometimes you don't find out until you're reconciling, at the end of the month, or until that particular vendor that you paid calls you, 30, 45, 60 days later and says, why haven't you paid me yet? And you thought you had, but you didn't. You sent it off to a criminal. And the dollar amount, I mean, it's tens of millions that we're seeing. And that's just what, our bank is seeing. And you can imagine if there's 8,000 or 9,000 more financial institutions across the country, what that number totals up to be. Okay. And before we move on, just feel free, if you guys have a question along the way, this is your meeting, please raise your hand. Happy to answer any questions as we go. Yes.
What's the timeline of a wire? Because I'm from Mexico. Sometimes I send wires there,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they go in a day, and sometimes they take 15 days.
Yeah.
And
Well,
there is a
50.
big timeline there. So what is the real timeline? Like, what point is money really gone?
It depends on where it's going. Domestically, it's going to be minutes, unless it's a very small bank that maybe, is not as well connected to the Fed system, I don't know. But it's going to be minutes domestically. If it's international, it's going to, again, depend where it's going. But it can be anywhere from typically, I would say more often than not, 1 to 2 days. Okay. So what is imposter fraud? There's a couple different versions of this, and then we're going to talk about best practices and then what to do if you suspect fraud. So imposter fraud is, and you might have already seen these kinds of emails floating around out there. Really where it starts is you have somebody who is posing as somebody that you know, and that's usually a result of you being hacked in some way or shape or form. What we've seen historically is that somebody has gotten into a company's email, and they will lurk. It will not be something.
No, sorry.
Hot mic. They've somehow gotten into your system, and they will sit there and they will lurk, and they will learn more about who's involved, who are the decision makers, who are the initiators and approvers. And over a course of time, once they've kind of got that down pat, all of a sudden you see an email come along from purportedly somebody in your office. And it looks just like their email, and especially if you're having a busy day, or if you're an office person that works, for one of you guys, and they're just work piled high, they're not maybe paying as much attention, as they normally would. And very frequently these emails, again, look just like they came from you or somebody in your organization. It's usually just like one letter off. And I will say typically there's always just something weird about it. I mean, when we have a situation like this and something's happened, that's always the feedback. They're like, God, something just didn't seem right, but, I was busy and it looked like their email, and, we went ahead and did it. There's always just something a little bit off. But yes.
It is in every email.
Yeah.
But they all do.
Really.
So how many people want gift cards for Honey Boo? Nobody, only I got that one? Oh, come on.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at some point you see something along those lines, but I think more and more people are becoming aware of that and seeing that, and sometimes it's just so shoddy. You're just like, oh, come on, I'm not falling for that. But sometimes they're really good.
The first thing was, are you working today? Are you in real estate? I'm not working today. Okay.
Yep. Sometimes, I mean, it gets a little bit sophisticated. Sometimes you'll get an email and they're like, and the criminal knows that somebody like Hadi or Karush is heading towards the airport. All of a sudden you get an email from Karush like, hey, I'm on my way, but we have this really big deal. I need your help. Can you get this done? And it seems valid. And of course, again, everybody's always so busy. You just want to knock these things out. And also, hey, if it's Karush or your boss or whomever, you want to make sure it gets done and you press the boss too. So anyways, most people are, not paying as much attention as they should, and that's where things go awry. Another big instance of imposter fraud is what we call vendor fraud, and that's when they have gotten a copy of one of your invoices, and they are then of one of your vendor's real invoice, I should say, and they will send it to you, but with changed instructions. It's a new mailing address. It's new routing account number for an ACH payment or a wire. All of it looks completely legit, but they just changed the instructions. I mean, how frequent is it these days, sadly, that you get contacted because, oh, we went through fraud and we had to change our bank account information. And you're like, okay, well, then I'll go ahead and update it, and you send off the payment, and boom, it's going to a criminal. And even scarier is that, they will frequently put on the contact information on their fake invoice, and you will call that 800 number, or whatever the number is, and you will start talking to the criminal. We've had that happen before, too, where, they're literally talking to the criminal like, oh, no, it's valid. Yeah, it really happened. Go ahead and, send it to the new information, and like, oh, great, I authenticated it, cross-checked it, we're good. No, not good. So of course, if you fall for it, that this goes to the fraudster. So this is what we were talking about in terms of executive imposter fraud, and again, they pose as somebody ask you to send payments outside of normal channels, usually by wire. May ask you to keep it confidential. This is really important, top secret. Reply once you've sent that payment so that I know that I can wire it out to South Africa. They try and take advantage of what I was just saying. Typically, when there's an executive involved, somebody's afraid to push back. Somebody's afraid to ask. And then frequently, everybody's so busy, executives aren't always available. And then the vendor side of things, again, changed instructions. And so often we do get those requests, and we don't frequently make sure and cross-check and double-check that that's been changed. So, of course, imposter fraud is very different. Most people aren't prepared. They don't act like they do with a phishing, situation where you've clicked on a link, all of a sudden, that malware is keeping track of all your keystrokes and what your online credentials are. They don't need to do that in this situation. They're having you do it for them. And, just like Darcy said, it's like, it doesn't happen to everybody, but it only takes once. And especially in smaller, companies and organizations, it just takes one big hit to take you down. And it's, of course, not quickly identified. Not everybody realizes. I actually had a church that this happened to, vendor fraud. And they wired out $35,000 and not recoverable. Biggest difference with this, obviously, is that they're willing and ready to kind of play with you on this. They're prepared to respond to your follow-up emails and phone calls on the fake invoices. They're ready to continue that deceit, and they're very, very good at it typically. So imposter fraud, some of the common denominators. Payment is to a new beneficiary or bank account. Payment is an exception to the norm. And the fraudsters, counting on this not being verified. Goes without saying. But I think this is really crucial. If something doesn't seem right, please raise your hand. If you're an employee in an office, and you have responsibilities that where you are the initiator for wires typically, raise your hand if something doesn't seem right. And please, if you are at the top of, an organization, an executive, and you have people who work for you, please create an atmosphere where it's okay for them to push back or raise your hand and tell them it's okay. You won't get in trouble if you ask me to re-verify this or explain why we're doing this. It's too much money typically. It's not a bad thing, to all be on the same page and re-verify these things. So some best practices for fighting this. Again, executives alert, everybody in the office that fraudsters are out there and what they do, and how they're posing, and typically that they're posing as you as an executive. AP staff, please, make sure that they're empowered to understand that's okay to raise your hand and push back. Internal business partners, educate everybody that communicates with vendors. IT is important. Now obviously in smaller, offices, you don't have an IT staff. But it's really, really crucial. I'm sure Darcy probably touched on this, but make sure you have all the latest and greatest software protection that you can on your computers. Make sure that it's constantly updated. Invest in that. It's worth it. It's not a lot of money for what it's going to protect you from. And I think that recommendation that she mentioned, as far as like having a separate dedicated banking computer, not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the resources for that. And not all of my customers in corporate America do that. But it's not a bad idea. It's a very good idea, actually, to keep that kind of separate from everything else. Because, gosh, you just can't always count on somebody in the office not surfing the net one day and clicking on the wrong thing. Okay. And vendors, tell vendors you're not going to accept changes to bank account information by email, or just set up a process that we'll talk about in a second to verify. So authenticating payment requests. If they're always authenticate them, obviously, if they come in by email, outside normal channels, made to accounts or countries that you've never sent money to. That goes without saying. And then ask to change that remittance information for a vendor. I think this is a really good point that they made here. If the request comes by email, call them. If it comes in by phone, email them. And then there's some good information that I think is another layer of authentication that I think is worthwhile. And our fraud department says, in addition to that thing, email, phone, email, set up some type of little additional layer with a vendor where maybe you have a password that only you guys know. That's a really good way to then, contact them and say, hey, I got a request to change the remittance information. I want to verify that. Can you, confirm and then also give us the password? And, obviously if you know these people very well and you know the sound of their voice and you know them, it's a lot easier to do. But if it's somebody newer or just somebody you talk to infrequently, it's a really good way to just add that extra layer of security. You might also want to prohibit, in some circumstances, payment requests by email. I would say too, it is always good if you haven't really been aware of this type of situation. It is not a bad exercise to go, into your accounts and just kind of re-verify everything and maybe do a little internal audit for 30 or 60 days, just make sure all is right with the world. It's always good to kind of get ahead of this versus, again, finding out later, especially from a vendor, why haven't you paid me? I'm like, well, I did. No, you didn't, We talked a little bit about wires with Darcy's presentation, and every situation is different. Not everybody is going to use the same types of tools. From my world and what I do in treasury management, typically everything I do is with online platforms, very, very, very secure online platforms, but it is all online. Stuff that you can do from your desktop, laptop, tablet, phone. It is very secure as long as you have the proper controls in place. So I think that, at the very least, if you're sending wires on something, you should have two sets of eyes looking at that wire before it goes out the door, especially if you're doing anything online. It's very easy. All the banks have it, so this is just not a plug for Wells Fargo. But we do, and we'd be happy to help you. But it's something that's very common across the industry. They will set you up so that one person can initiate, a second person can approve. The person who initiates cannot approve that same wire. It's always good to have two sets of eyes, even outside of imposter fraud or other fraud. It's good just to make sure somebody didn't fat finger an extra zero, right? So that is very helpful situation. And in the event that you just don't have the proper people and workflow to be able to accommodate that, most banks, we do have a layer of authentication called secure validation, where, and you might see this in other platforms where you want to be able to send a transaction, and they'll say, okay, great, we need to send you a random 6-digit code. Press this button to get that. And where do you want it? Do you want it to be sent to your phone, to a landline, to an email? And then you're able to plug that in and send it, which is just another way to circumvent any type of fraudster. This is really important. I can't stress this enough. Monitor your accounts every single day. I think a lot of people tend to wait until month end because they're busy. Take 5 or 10 minutes in the morning to log in and take a look at your accounts and make sure all is right with the world. Most things will, posted overnight. and you'll be able to see them first thing in the morning. So, if you see something out of sorts, if it is something where you've seen a fraudulent check, if you've seen maybe somebody tried to debit you via ACH and it's not something you recognize, call the bank immediately. We can help. There are ways for us to help in that situation. We have plenty of fraud prevention tools, but in the event that you don't even have that, call the bank immediately. The sooner the bank knows, the sooner we can combat it. But if you hold off on that, or if you let us know 30 days later, the money's gone.
So how often do you advise changing your account passwords?
Our system usually changes it about every 60 days, which our customers love, I'll admit. But it has to happen. Again, it's for your protection, the bank's protection, that these things are constantly updated. I think that's usually pretty a safe number to work with, and it's just always make sure, obviously, that the password is strong. Don't do middle name 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you think Wells will be working on something with two-step verification in the future, where if you're not on your own computer, that it requires you to confirm that you are the person trying to log into your Wells account?
Yes, they actually do that now. So you will see that with the Treasury Management, with the business platform, the Commercial Electronic Office, CEO, because we love our acronyms, we absolutely do that. So you can log into CEO from anywhere because you have global credentials there. So obviously it's important that you're logging on, via some type of secure computer, not somebody's random laptop or something that you borrowed from somebody, But there's multiple layers of authentication, secure socket, IT stuff. I don't know. It is, but it is something where it'll also verify you where hey, if you're logging in from somewhere that it doesn't recognize, it's going to prompt you, to authenticate yourself and send a text to do that validation. But most of the banks, I think, are pretty much there. Most of the big banks, because it's important.
Yeah, I don't mind two-step verification on any.
No, having been through that, I'm sure, and most of the banks, you can do more. I mean, if you have the people involved, you could do a 3 or 4 layer authentication if you really wanted to, and you may decide that you want to in certain dollar amounts. If it's $500,000 as a warrant, having maybe a third person look at it, okay, takes a few minutes. It's not something that you want to take lightly. Yes, sir.
When you say check the account every day, are you referring to us on our personal, checking and saving?
Yeah,
Are you checking that every day, or are you talking about rematch should be checked there?
Yes and yes. Yes and yes. Absolutely. Consumers have a little bit more protection than corporations, to be honest with you. So businesses have a much shorter window to contest fraudulent items. Consumers typically have 30 or 60 days, depending on the transaction. Businesses usually have 1 to 2 days.
But, it starts with a little charge.
Yeah.
A little charge.
Yeah, they start paying you a little bit.
And then maybe they'll wait for 30 days.
Yeah.
And then they'll hit you with the
Yeah.
little charge.
So, in this scenario, I don't know where all of you are at in particular, whether you are running your own office or you're part of an office, but regardless, in that scenario, whether it is personal or business, check your account every day. Make it a part of your day. It's a few minutes, but it's really important. I mean, it's very difficult, especially within your checking account. You have protections with credit cards, but within your checking account, if something has happened and everybody has written checks or signed up somewhere online with their routing account number, it's easy, for somebody, for that data to be breached. How often do we hear this on TV about there's been a data breach here, a data breach there, and all this information's been compromised, and all it takes is, one effort for somebody to draft something out of your account, it's gone. And then you have to deal with the nightmare that is, putting in a fraud case and trying to recover the money. Yes?
Well, thank you, but I was a PayPal hack, I guess, and you can go in your PayPal account and do a second verification where it sends you it's a pain anytime you do PayPal, but I highly recommend you do that if you use that site. It's 2 seconds and just sort of go there after.
Absolutely. Again, anytime you're moving money online, make sure it's on a valid platform. and that it is set up with some type of dual control or secure validation to ensure that there's like multi-level authentication. Yes.
What are your thoughts on Venmo? You know, there's Zelle, which to me I feel safer. It's like same thing, but Venmo is very popular. What are your thoughts on that?
Of course, I'm going to plug Zelle, coming from the bank. But, you know, from my understanding, Venmo is safe.
I use it.
Yeah, it is safe. You know, I've never signed up for it just because, you know, once I finally got kind of okay with doing that, I signed up with Zelle because it was available through the bank. So it's just obviously something I was going to use with my account. But, you know, I would feel Venmo safe. Obviously, you know, that's good for, you know, person-to-person kind of things. I typically wouldn't use it for business, you know, but.
Is Zelle the same thing as, kind of similar to the Cash App thing?
Zelle is free bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're all kind of similar. They're person-to-person payment vehicles. Yeah. Yeah. So I did want to let you guys know that there are a lot of resources available to you, and there's actually a website with Wells Fargo. This is a little bit more on the business side, but it does cover a lot of imposter fraud. And so that address up there will take you right to Treasury Insights. But literally, if you go on the Wells Fargo site or your bank, their website, you know, take a look at that. Take a look at some of the resources that are out there to help you combat fraud, some of the different ideas. It's important, you know, imposter fraud is something that's kind of out there and again, outside maybe the norm of what you really consider fraud when it comes to, you know, being check or ACH or wire. But, you know, whether, again, be our website or anybody else, it's important that you just educate yourself, educate the people around you, to be aware, to stay ahead of what's happening, because that kind of information is constantly being updated with, you know, what we're hearing out there in the marketplace. And every time that there is a new attempt, because sadly, you know, these criminals are using their talents for evil, and they're constantly trying to stay, you know, ahead of what the banks are doing to combat it. So feel free to go there. It's all free information and available to you. And of course, in the event of any type of fraud, whether it be imposter fraud or anything, like I mentioned before, make sure you check in the morning, identify it, even if you're not sure. If there's any element of you not being sure about what this transaction is about, call the bank, call the vendors, call somebody, confirm it ASAP. You know, you really don't want to let these things sit. The longer you let it go, the more likely, you know, you're going to be out money. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or anything I can answer? Yes.
One weird question, because I get my updates from BB&T.
Okay.
I am on every account, every day.
Good.
Any transaction.
Excellent.
So if I was hacked on my email, would that information be available to the hacker?
Very possibly. I mean, yeah. I mean, if it's coming to that email and they've infiltrated that, yeah, they're going to start.
Here you are trying to get notification.
Yeah.
About your bank account.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the good thing is, and I'm sure BB&T does the same thing. They're not going to send you that email with the full account number. Yeah. It's going to be, you know, truncated.
Right.
So that part of it's good. But you know, if they've hacked your email, they now know how much money's in your account. Period. And now, depending on what that dollar amount is. Hey, do I invest a little bit more time in this now and see what's available?
That's why you don't keep money in the checking account. I mean, so, you know, right? I mean, you try not to.
Well, I think I think again, if you on the consumer side, you have some protections in place, and but again, the sooner we know, the better. With businesses, I think it's important to have fraud control measures in place on those business accounts so that you are protected against any kind of type of fraud. But yeah, depends on the situation. Yeah, I think most businesses will keep quite a bit of money in their checking account because they need it for that purpose. I think on the consumer side, yeah, I there's an element to there where you only keep what you need maybe in that checking account, maybe park something else in a savings account. But again, if you've been hacked, they might know your savings account information as well. You know, so it's not always fail safe. It's just you have to be vigilant.
So is there a way to not have them linked? still talking about that with me, but I sold a house and closed on a house this year, so there was some big money sitting in an account for a while, and then we made sure that it wasn't linked to my debit card or anything that, you can just quickly take out of. But how not linked was that really? That was kind of losing.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I mean, if it's something that you're holding escrow fund for somebody and, for you,
Like
for
my
you,
house
okay,
closed, there's
yeah.
money in there, a number of times passed before
Sure.
I'm gonna close on a new one, so I didn't wire, so it sat in that account for a while.
Yes, and that's good. I mean, obviously just keeping an eye on it every day, but
Watch
just
it leave.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Well, I think when you have a situation, this goes for consumers or businesses. I mean, if you have money, you set up a new account and it's set off to the side, and you're not conducting a lot of business on it. It's pretty safe because you don't, the information, the routing account number on that particular account is not being transmitted all over the place. But if you're on an account where you're writing checks, I mean, that's just basically a highway billboard for, people to, steal from you, because you're just putting it out to everybody. It's like, here's my routing account number. Feel free to create a fraudulent check in your basement or go online and plug that information in, to pay for something. Yes, sir.
So we all get our commission checks wired to an account. We gave the information, routing number, all that to RE/MAX.
Right.
Where all of our commission checks go.
Right.
How concerned should we be that RE/MAX is really protecting our information and not getting hacked, that they now know that our commission checks
That your
go right into
commission
that
checks?
account?
Yeah. But
I'm not the CFO, but I do know that we have two set verifications on things that get paid out every day, and so there's multi-level of everything, and we do monitor things every day, and we have caught things, vendor fraud, specifically in the recent past, but we do catch, Hottie's watching it, Hirsch is watching it, somebody upstairs is initiating it, Allie's watching it. We got eyes on everything all the time, and
yeah. and if there's information stored in a bank's portal, it's safe within there because it's going to have restricted access based off of particular entitlements and need, the business need to know.
If they have that, what do you call that thing?
Like a fob, the little key fob.
Yeah.
So I mean, for example, somebody who works for Karusha's team, they are very, segmented in terms of what accounts do I have access to, what information, what types of services. It's not like, hey, I have a login and I can just wire money out to wherever. It is literally, there are multiple controls put in place across the board to ensure that the company is safe.
VPN, they call it, right?
Yep.
So you get an identifier that's unique to you, and it only lasts for hurry up and type it, otherwise it's not good.
So random 6-digit security codes. The bank is now moving into biometrics where it can authenticate, thumbprints and facial recognition to make sure. So lots of fun things, coming down the pike with that. But I mean, I would say when you're working with a company like that is as sophisticated as they are in terms of managing money, I mean, it's safe.
And you also know Keith Bott is in school. What can I get to save? How can I save us? What gadget? What can I do? He's always on whatever's the latest.
Yeah, he stays ahead of the curve for sure, and that's something that we have a conversation with him regularly about. What's the best way for doing this, and what's the best way to put in controls. And he has all of these controls. When we talk about positive pay for checks and the ACH fraud filter and everything else, these things are all in place. Plus, the bank has plenty of little extra steps involved. So if a wire went to some place where they didn't think it would normally go, somebody's going to pick up a phone and call RE/MAX, to reconfirm that.
Right. So if we write a check to someone and somebody else cashes it, we get notified. So we can stop and figure out what happened. So, and it's the next day, next morning.
Yeah. So lots of things are put in place. And I think most, companies and most realtors are doing the exact same thing. There's just too much money involved. They can't. I think actually the state bars, made some very strong recommendations that, that realtors and law firms and title companies all be on the same page and have these protections in place for these reasons.
So on a personal thing, you know, where you're saying check your accounts every day, blah, blah, blah. How do you know when you're checking them every day? Because I don't do that, I should. When you're checking them every day, that you're not being watched on your computer, that they're, you know, everything you do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that starts with, you know, just having the proper updated software, you know, protection against it, the antivirus, phishing kind of software, and that's updated to ensure that you're not. But I think, you know, no matter what, if you are monitoring that every day, whether they see that or not, I mean, you're staying a step ahead of it. And, you know, if anything were to happen, you're going to know immediately, and you're going to let your bank know, and it's going to be addressed.
One quick suggestion that we don't always think about, the computer could be safe. You have to go to a service, so never check your bank accounts in a public domain, check them at home. Never, you know, hook into something that somebody else could be watching. Sometimes you're in a hotel, you don't think about it.
Public Wi-Fi is dangerous.
I'm gonna touch on that in mine.
Yes, go ahead. So I will shut up. But yeah, public Wi-Fi is dangerous. She's going to tell you why.
Awesome. Thank
Yes.
you, Jim.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, now remind me, is it if I click right, it's forward? Okay. I screwed this up at the annual meeting 2 weeks ago, so. Okay, I talked fast. I promise this will not go long. I'm Sarah Applegate. I run the insurance department. I'm going to talk about actual insurance claims that got paid for this type of stuff. That's what I'm here to talk about today. Yes, it's partially a sales pitch. I'm just going to tell you that now. But a lot of people don't know that you can actually get insurance for this space, so that's why I was brought in. Okay, out of these 5 definitions, first of all, how many of you recognize all of these, what these are? Okay, good. This is good. Okay. Out of these 5 things, which do you think has caused the highest number of losses this year to the insurance company? Which one? Any guesses? Just yell.
To our company?
No, to the insurance company for the claims for the year of 2019 so far.
It's ransomware.
It's ransomware. By almost double compared to everything else. Ransomware is if they get access to your system, computer, phone, internet access, your server, and they hold it hostage for money. The only good thing about this is that there is honor among thieves, and if you pay them that money, they usually go away. It's the weirdest thing. There is honor among thieves. All right. So this first number, 61%. How many of you in here run a small business? 1099 employees. Anybody? How many of you are operating your own business? Okay, there you go. I know that. That's why I wanted hands up. 61% of small businesses have some type of cyber breach at some point in their business life. The second number is even scarier. Of the businesses that get hit, this is how many go out of business within 6 months of that happening. That's the worst part about this because these are financially devastating. How many of your businesses have $50, $100, $250,000 in reserve to make something like this go away? Your wire that disappeared. Like he said, the wire money disappears. Where is it going to come from? This is the average claim for a cyber or data breach in 2017. It's higher for 2018. This is the average. Now keep in mind, you guys are smaller businesses. This is a little smaller. For the small business bracket, it's between $200,000 and $300,000. That's still a lot of money. That's the average. Some of these are $500,000, some of them are $27,000. So, who recognizes this? All right, everybody should. All right, I'm not going to make you raise your hands because I'm not going to have you very stuff. This is part of your wire disclosure, the addendum. How many of you people really think this is going to protect you from a lawsuit? Okay. You know those trampoline places where they have you sign a waiver before your kid gets on there? How many of you think it really protects them against getting sued if their kid gets hurt? It doesn't happen. It's a safeguard, and it shows that your due diligence has been done, but it's still not going to prevent a lawsuit entirely. It's not going to prevent you from being blamed. The blame is the biggest part that I worry about. I work in insurance. Everybody blames everybody for everything. Everybody sues everybody for everything. This is what happens. This is our world. This is one of the wire fraud claims they have paid this year so far. I decided to put in a couple of the breakdowns underneath it. So client funds that disappeared was $150,000. They paid that to get back. This is why this is so important, because otherwise that client's coming after you for that. If it's your fault, if your email's the one that got hacked, they're going to blame you for it, even though you did your due diligence. They're still going to blame you for it. Legal fees, $47,500 to make it go away. It gets worse. Hang in there, Carmen. How about that one? This is from a Google Dropbox violation. because they didn't secure it properly. They had client private information in there. The clients had their information stolen. The clients sued in return. This is stuff you hear about on the news. Every single one of these examples is from a small business, a small one. These aren't even the big businesses. Forensics for discovery and to fix it. Forensics includes its cost to fix it, find where it's coming from, remove it from your computer, clean everything up, make it go away, make sure it's not going to happen again. And then look at the legal fees on this one. That was the damages to the clients. That's a big number.
So don't put stuff in Google Docs.
You have to secure it properly. They didn't. This company did not. And ironically, this was an IT company. They just didn't store the client data securely. And a data breach is a very big violation these days. This one is for ransomware. This one I thought was interesting. These guys let me go through their claim database. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun reading some of this stuff because it's scary. It's so creative. They get so creative. This one, somebody opened an email. They downloaded a virus. It held their computer system, their servers, their phone, their internet, all ransom until they paid it. So the forensics to do cleanup and remove everything. This is the interesting number that I thought was kind of neat. The lost income to the business, because they were shut down for 3 days. They couldn't do anything. You can't get into your client system, none of that stuff. So lost income to the business, again, this is what the insurance is for. It's to make sure you guys don't have a hiccup. So some of you guys have mentioned E&O. I've had some people come to me with questions outside of this. Check your E&O policy. Make sure. Because some insurance companies offer data breach as an option. Some don't. Some E&O policies have big screaming letters on the front page that say data breach, no coverage. So you have to look for that. If you're one of the lucky ones who does have that coverage, take a look at what it actually covers or ask your business insurance agent. You can also come to me. I'm happy to help walk you through this. These are 6 things you should take a look for. Don't worry about remembering all this stuff. We're sending out handouts after this, and I have some on my desk if you need it. Social engineering, when they appear to be somebody else. Ransomware, telecommunications theft. This is if they hack into your system or if they flat out steal your laptop or your phone. Because, I mean, you can physically have a data breach because they took your laptop. Reputational harm, so damage to your business name as a result of the data breach. I mean, we all hear about Target had this data breach stolen, right? They handle the PR for that stuff. That's important to your business. Keep your name clean. Business interruption and data recovery, so if your data gets disappeared, they find it, bring it back. Website media liability. So keep in mind too, you can get hacked through your website, your Facebook pages too. So if your policy doesn't mention things like this, definitely give it a thorough read over. Have me take a look at it with you. This is additional stuff that you probably forget you need and that you need. So forensics and legal expenses, like she mentioned, getting the FBI involved, finding out where it's coming from, who's at fault, where it started, where the virus even came from. Any of that, that's part of what you should be covered for because that's expensive. You saw some of the numbers on the previous screen, $67,000 for forensics. Fraud response. If you had a data breach, would you have any idea what to do? So that's the thing. The company that we work with, their name is Wingman. They are a sidecar to your E&O, so they're your wingman. I like their name. It's fun. You basically call these people and you say, this is what just happened, and they walk you through everything. They take over most of it from you, and they will tell you exactly what to do every step of the way, how to mitigate further damage. They are literally your best friend when you have the worst thing happen possible. Public relations, like I mentioned, Target. Even the state of South Carolina, their Department of Revenue got hacked at one point. I mean, it happens all the time. We only hear about the big ones. The average number of client files that get stolen is about 3,000. That's not that many. But if you think about the average cost to clean up is about $1,500 per client data file that gets stolen. That's a lot. Extortion, that's your ransomware. And then fines, because if you're found liable to have violated some of the Privacy Act, this is a very big deal. So this insurance policy that I talk about covers all of this stuff. You would have paid for your wire that disappeared. And this is why I'm here. Because a lot of people don't know that this exists. When I found out about the incident we had a couple months ago, I called this company and I said, we need a contract so we can help these guys out. That way you don't have to worry about it every step of the way. Because no matter how much Jason and Jim and Darcy and I can educate you guys, we are not perfect. We're human beings. We're going to make a mistake at some point. It happens. This is for when that happens. That's what it costs. For a whole year, it's $1 million in coverage. It covers all those things that I've talked about. I have a sheet that I'm happy to send out to you guys. If you want to compare what you have right now with what this company gives you, we can do that. If you flat out don't have that coverage, you can get it. This company specializes in tech and cyber. This is all they do all day long. That's why they're reasonably priced. And that's why they cover so much, because they know what they're doing. They know how to recover data. They know how to find cyber criminals. This is all that they do. So the rep is wonderful. She's happy to answer any questions. Just to put this in perspective for you, I went reading through the policy the other day, which I don't recommend to anyone. It was 58 pages long. To put it in perspective, your average homeowner's insurance policy is 42 pages. This is 58 pages compared to a 42-page homeowner's policy. That's how well-defined their coverage has to be, because it's very extensive as to what they do cover. This company's a little different. They tell you what they cover, and it's very broad in definition, as opposed to saying, well, we only cover this if it fits these criteria. It's very broad, it's very general. If your email gets hacked, that's a hacker. It's covered. If you end up downloading a virus by mistake, that's malware, that's virus, that's malicious hardware. That's covered. I know that we sent this out in the newsletter a couple of months ago, but as we know, everybody's too busy to read those, and that's fine. That's cool. We're never offended by this. But this is something that I wanted everybody to know about, because the numbers that everybody has talked about today is very scary. Everybody's worried about this. That's why there were so many questions from the audience as we went through this. So if this is of interest to you, if you want that peace of mind, I'm happy to talk to you about it. I'm also happy to make sure that your existing policy has what you expect it to have. So Brian Belcher came to me the other day. He says, my policy from Nationwide says this, but I don't know what it all means. I said, just bring me the policy and we'll look through it together. And then we can compare it, and it's fine. So I'm happy to consult with you and make sure that you guys are protected as well as you can be. So it makes it a little less scary knowing that you have backup in case of disaster. That's really what this is. And they're not going to try and get out of it either. If you literally just make a mistake, if you have key logging stuff on there, this is what they're here for. This is why they're good at this. This is all they do all day. So I will be here afterward. Is lunch here yet?
Our lunch sponsor is outside.
Excellent. Okay, good deal. So if you want to grab my card or grab a sheet with the basic info on it, I have them here, but you're also welcome to give me a call too. Yes?
Is that anything preventative? Like you sign up and they'll log into your system and be like,
These guys have one of the best educational websites out there. So it's Wingman Insurance is their name. Their website is customer facing as well. If you guys need direction on, hey, do they have education on this specific thing, I can direct you to that. They have videos, they have tools, they have all kinds of educational sheets. If you have a vendor that you're dealing with, like we talk about vendors, there's actually a sheet that they publish specifically for vendors so that vendors can be more secure as you prepare to do business with them. Allie from Title has taken that for some of her attorneys that she works with, like, hey, here are some additional tips for you. But the thing is, any small business can buy this. This is the realtor rate. This is your category as a business professional for $1 million in coverage with $1,000 deductible. So, but yeah, we're happy to educate. They're happy to consult as well. They have a risk prevention portal. It's excellent. And again, swimming through their claims portal was a very eye-opening. This is not full E&O. This is data breach and cyber liability. So even if your laptop gets stolen at an airport somewhere and they hack in that way, that's what it's here for. Any type of data breach in general, it doesn't have to happen online. It can physically happen because they get your phone or they get your laptop. If they hack into public Wi-Fi, I mean, we talked about that briefly, because if you're on your cell phone and you're using public Wi-Fi, a lot of passwords get stolen that way and people just don't know. So be very cautious of that. If it requires a password to get in, that's a step in the right direction. But other than that, it's a little bit weird.
They've got educational videos and all that, like what we can do on our own personal computers, things of that nature too.
The basics are all going to be the same. Yeah, I mean, the basics, like Jim said, what we've all said all along, basic email security, double authentication, having virus monitoring on your computer, all of that is critical, and that's all where it's going to start.
I wouldn't even know how to do double authentication, so I'm going to have to educate myself about that. But I mean, it sounds simple.
Do you have a password to get into your laptop? and then you have to log in to get into your email, because that's what you would consider 2 walls to get in. So yeah, that's where it all starts. And some of the banks, like she mentioned, PayPal is one of them. I had a friend who had their PayPal hacked too, so I've seen it a couple times. I worked in banking before I was ever in insurance, so I've seen a lot of fraudulent checks. We asked about paper checks. That's always fun to validate. But it's really ironic. We were saying at the front desk that the electronic space used to be more secure. Now it's almost like paper is a little more secure. It's just really interesting to see what has happened with the times. So, yeah.
Sorry, when you say you'll look at our policy, what policy are you looking at?
If you guys have your own E&O, then I'm happy to look at that for you. I've already consulted. Yeah, I've already consulted with them on that. But if you individually on your own want to have that, yeah. Just in case. Yeah, because the thing is, it's one of those cases where you can individually be held responsible for things. If it's your personal device that ends up having an issue on it, you can have this for your business to extend it to your clients as well. Because if you're using a personal email, it's a very fine line.
You're 1099, not technically, you're not an employee, you're, what do they call it, statutory, non-statutory, but I don't know. Okay?
HR's not here, I have no help for you.
So, you know, we used to call it independent contractor and some other thing. So I cannot tell you which email to use, I can't tell you where to keep your computer, what kind of computer to use, and in the ICA it says that any device is on you, it's not on me. So any information that you have is also in that category, not just the thing, the stuff in the thing is on you. So, and I can't tell you to get insurance or not get insurance, but I can definitely encourage it, because like she said, doesn't cover that. It's not an us thing, that's a you thing.
How do we get a copy of our current policy?
I can give you a copy of our policy. It's probably in Wolfman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is just a backup, because the thing is, if you are ever personally negligent, be very careful about that, because being an independent contractor, you take some of that risk on yourself. And it's something. Yeah. This is people's money. This is where they get the most angry, right? You heard Darcy. She's normally a nice person. Not when anybody disappears. So.
How much would a normal umbrella policy cover? I mean, would it cover anything under the cyber liability?
If you have a commercial, professional umbrella policy, we would have to read the policy language to see. A lot of times, data breach and privacy protection is a weird exclusion that a lot of insurance companies have on the commercial side. It's an endorsement you have to ask for, it's optional, and it's not typically included in most commercial policies as a standard.
And so then as an individual, like I have an umbrella policy, but it probably wouldn't be.
Personal umbrellas, keep in mind, those don't carry over to your professional life. There's a very, very thick dividing line there. Yeah, we talk about personal and professional umbrellas a lot. Professional and personal umbrellas typically start at $1 million in coverage, but again, it's a matter of what specific things it covers. A lot of times this cyber stuff, this is new. Most of the policy language that you have on a commercial insurance policy is old school, and it doesn't extend this stuff the way that it should, or it's not as broad in coverage as you would like it to be.
So this is all these products you guys provide us.
Yeah, this is one thing. This is one policy. It covers all this stuff in one shot. It's a blanket. It's as simple as it gets. And again, it's an option. Some of the policies that I've seen do a decent job of covering for data breach and cyber fraud. Some of them don't. Some of them specifically scream at you in capital letters that it actually doesn't cover that whatsoever. That's the part that's scary, because you've been through this. We've had a few agents who've been through this personally, and it's a very scary time. And having this peace of mind, it helps. So
traditional E&O, it does not cover.
Traditional old school E&O. To be really transparent, our insurance company in-house didn't have this until I looked at the E&O. So it's like, I mean, an insurance company can have a gap in coverage. It's a very new thing. Well, I mean, and you've seen in 2017, those are the numbers that I gave up as the average. 2018, the average payout for this type of crime has gone up even more. So it's really scary because they're getting better and better at it. That's the one thing I learned reading all these claims that this insurance company let me take a look at, is that some of these are creative as all get out. The way that they get your money and your passwords these days. I mean, the imposter one is probably the easiest because there's that natural degree of trust. You know, if it appears to come from this attorney's office, that's what typically happens. Your client trusted the real estate process. They knew to expect wiring instructions. When they got them, they just trusted it. It's blind. They don't know that degree of doubt. And the thing is, with you guys, if you educate people, if you walk them through that wire fraud addendum, it does help because at least makes them aware that this can happen. And not all of us have as dramatic of a story as yours, but I'm sure everybody in this room steals that often because we've seen it happen in-house, which is a shame. And no matter how good we are at this, the criminals are just going to keep getting better, which is why this stuff exists. That's why this company for the insurance policy exists. And it's a space where it happens all the time. Some of these amounts that I saw in that claim portal, 1.6 million, 1.3, $726,000.
And this one goes to $1 million.
Yeah, you can, millions at the bottom level you can get. They do 2 and 5 and higher than that if you need it. I always start with a basic $1 million with $1,000 deductible. So it's typically pretty affordable. Yes, it can be done on a payment schedule. They gave us that option. They don't typically do that, but that was nice. So.
Is it safe to say if you've got E&O in place, you've got $1 million personal umbrella policy plus this cyber liability policy, are you pretty well covered all the way around?
You're pretty well covered. Yeah, and it's that, I hate to put my legal hat on and go on, you may be covered properly. I hate that. But the thing is, every insurance policy has exclusions in it, and nobody reads those. That's okay. If you have a really good agent, our job as your agent is to consult with you and say, all right, what do you do every day in your business? And make sure that those operations are covered. So most realtors operate pretty similar. But those of you who are moving into the digital space, which is a good thing, you just have to be a little more mindful of the things that opens up to. Anything new that you do can open you up to crimes happening. And it's your responsibility and our responsibility as a business too, to protect client data and client financial information. And that's where we see a lot of the theft happening. So, but yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. I hate scaring people, but it's nice to say, hey, look, there's a solution. Mike.
Oh.
Michael.
How quick can we sign up?
10 minutes, fill out an application, you're done. It's a 7-question application. It's basically, have you had fraud in the last 3 years? If the answer is no and you're a small business, you're pretty much done. That's it. So, yeah.
Would fraud include just credit card hacks?
It depends on if there was the actual question is, have you had an incident involving a breach of data that would have resulted in a payout of claim of this policy type? It's the longest question on the planet. But the thing is, if you've then taken steps to prevent it further, usually you're fine. So if you learned from it, they want to see that you learned from it and did something about it, then they're okay with it.
Do you recommend also having workers' comp type insurance?
Workers' comp is a state regulated thing. You have to have a certain number of employees for it to be required. It's always a good idea, but it's not required until you hit a certain number of employees. So, yeah.
And Sarah will be around later for questions.
I will be.
So
I'm here.
cutting you off. Thank you. Alright, so I'm gonna get that today. Alright, so I want to bring up our lunch sponsors and then we'll let you guys go after that. But we have Andrew and Tom with Old Doctors, total 180 here on top of this.
And we're just gonna talk if we come back next week. How's it going? So she didn't scare you, but I will. No, I'm kidding. Okay. I am Andrew with, and another curveball for you. We are Mold Authority. We are going to a national franchise, and I am the local owner here. So Mold Doctor has switched to Mold Authority. I have cards for you here. But hope you all are well. Thanks for having us. Appreciate all the communication. And I know you guys are all very, you're in a lot of homes, and you see a lot of different things. You probably have come across